as we were saying, so here we have the darkness of Tarkov. So Tarkov itself obviously is a super dark game in the nighttime. There's obviously some ambient light given by moon, things like that. And things are going to impact that, right? So you're going to want to have NVGs to kind of combat that. Utilizing your night vision is absolutely huge when going into these engagements and trying to have an upper hand. So we're going to take a look at a few night vision goggles, and then we're going to obviously use the best ones to kind of compare everything so we can get a good picture, a good clear picture of what's going on. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to throw the cheapest set on. So the cheapest set is going to come from Skier Level 2, the PNV10Ts. So these are going to be right here. And as you see, it's fairly grainy, but it does offer you a pretty good vision overall. You're missing a little bit of your field of view, but that's not necessarily a bad thing compared to some of the more expensive units. But again, this is Skier Level 2, and it's one of the cheaper options, if not the cheapest option for night vision. So let's go ahead and kind of switch this out for the next step up. So that next step up is going to be this monocular. So this is the Pvs14 Monocular. This is from Peacekeeper 2 at 1,289 USD. This unit is pricey for what it is. You're going to see why. So check this out, right? We hit that button and boom. We have like no vision. Let's go ahead and pull up YouTube chat as well. So the lack of vision here obviously is a massive, issue. We can't see a large portion of our screen, and it becomes essentially a detriment to us. It is a little crisper. It's a little cleaner. There's less fuzz going on. But in my mind, it's not necessarily worth the trade-off versus the actually cheaper PNV system. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of pop that on the ground. The next step up is the Armasight N15. So this is 44,000-ish rubles on the flea, about $820 US for Peacekeeper 3. So it is a step up. But we're going to see a pretty solid change here in the color. The color is obviously a little bit different here. It does change kind of how clear things are, and that is an advantage. But obviously you still have the same issue you have that PNV at a little bit less of a price at a earlier level. So these, again, are kind of out in my mind. So we're going to go ahead and hit these on, drop that out of here. And we're going to grab the bad lads, the big boys. These are the GP NVG 18s. These are the top end of NVGs, and we're going to use these for the experiment because obviously I can see the most, get the best footage, and it's the clearest image. So having all this field of view gives us a few massive advantages. What we have in the gun right now is just regular old PS ammo. We are open sight. So let's go ahead and bust off a few shots. Not too bad. Now if I go ahead and reload this, I should have, the chamber's going to be PS. Now I'm going to have some tracer rounds in the rest of the magazine. So at this point, let's go ahead and shoot. And the tracer rounds don't make too much of a difference in the NVGs. I honestly would say they probably make more of a difference without the NVGs. But you still can't quite see them, so there's no real point in running them on these guns, I would say. So kind of keep that in mind. Go ahead and pop our NVGs back on. And now I want to look at something else. The suppressor obviously changes how your NVGs interact with the environment. This is going to be a slightly different way of interacting with the environment. So this is what you're looking at with a stock AK. That flash can really take you out if you're kind of shooting a bunch, because once you start kind of it gets really hard to see. So my question was, does flash hiders actually matter? Do they actually impact anything? And let's go into the NVGs off, take a couple of shots with these off. that is a heck of a flash, and it does impact your vision. For those of you on TikTok Live, I appreciate you sending me likes. It does make a huge difference in how the algorithm perceives the stream. So we're going to go ahead and pop that off. Now we're going to throw on a Dynacomp, a little higher end muzzle brake on this. The signature is significantly less, so we actually know that this does in fact impact the charge of the round, right? The actual pop that the round makes. So that's kind of cool. That actually means that it matters. But for the rest of the test, we're going to throw the suppressor back on just because we have one, and suppressor. So now we have NVGs on. We're going to go ahead and throw on our first scope. This is the PSO1. Line up, and that is fairly clear, super crisp in the NVGs. I have no problem seeing that and seeing past it. If I turn the light on, this when we run to later scopes, is the light really reflects back your NVGs. So obviously lights off. All right, go ahead and let's do this as well. Let's get rid of that one. Boom. So that's going to our inventory. Now, there is a thing with this gun that gives it kind of a unique property. That is the ability to mount a sight to the side of it through like a dovetail system. So if I go and take my NVGs off, pop these on, I have some night vision capability with the scope, while still have my peripherals be non-backlit, which can be an advantage in some fights if you see a light pop off on the side, right? Now if I put my NVGs on, put these on, and it is obviously super bright with that light reflecting back in the scope. So, take that off. There's something else too you can do with the AK, that it has a front lit sight. So you see it has that little light up front. If I take my NVGs off, how much crisper and cleaner that looks. So you can really locate that front post if you want to run that. But obviously, if you can see it, the enemy can see it. So kind of keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and take that off. Dig in here, and I believe that's all of them we have that mount to that system. So now we're going to take a look at the ADAR. So the ADAR is obviously going to run quite a bit, right? It's an M4 platform, an AR platform. The sights work fairly well because they're a fairly open sight in the dark, but you're still going to lose it. So we're going to start out with one of the earlier sights that you're going to use, which is probably going to be like a Spectre. So we're going to throw that on. You see in the dark. Throw the NVGs on, and how much crisper that actually is. Right, you can see through it without too much of an issue. The little bit of light on the sight isn't necessarily a bad thing on this sight. It kind of gives you a little bit of an advantage in that it actually kind of shows the sight. Pop that off and see how much darker that is. So there are two different Spectre sights though. So let's go ahead and grab that one off and grab the black unit on. Looks like no real difference in visibility in these two sights. All right. So let's move on to the 30mm ring sights. Oh, hey, you know what we could do first? I've got some Acogs. Oh, I grabbed them out. You also have the Vulcan. So the Vulcan is another night vision scope. Obviously, well, it's way too bright. And actually, that night vision is fairly clean. I dare say that sight is worth using, other than I bet a far MOA. It's not going to be advantageous because of the large reticle. So that's kind of the only thing to think about there. All right, it's kind of nice to know that there's that option in the Vulcan. So 30mm rings on. Acog on. So here we have the, I think this is 3.5 Acog. This is 4 times. Okay, it's very slight lit reticle, so it should show very crisp and clean, and it does. Actually, this is a very, very nice sight. Other than that is kind of obnoxious, is it not? Overall, not hating that. I think that that looks fairly crisp and clean. Go ahead and take the ACOG off. Well, the ACOG is fantastic. It's a 4x zoom. There's a 3.5x zoom option as well in Tarkov, and it makes a world of difference. Let's go ahead and throw on the 30mm ring. So 30mm rings is where I found a lot of differences in scopes. This is where I found my issue. So I was running on Shoreline, and I ran into an invisible player. And the footage came out like hot garbage because of a simple issue of not being able to see. So this is the TAC 30, which is a scope that I absolutely love, right? This is my main go-to scope. You see that giant reticle, it's backlit, nice and clean during the day, but at night, that stuff glows. It makes the scope pretty much unusable during the nighttime. So kind of keep that in mind, is those red reticles, is they're going to glow in your NVGs. You're not going to want that. That's going to give you a bad time, and you're going to wish you had something else. Versus, like, let's look at the Razor. The Razor is a scope that I use a lot now. That's kind of become my go-to. But it kind of gives you that little green dot in the middle with the Razor, and that's actually not a bad thing. It makes it super crisp and clean and easy to see, and gives you the option at that point, because there's so much zoom on the scope, to kind of back off of that and maybe not use NVGs if you have a crisper target, which would not be surprising a lot of times. All right, let's go ahead and throw this scope in there. And I want to test out the, is this one the 3-24, the March? That's what it was, the March, that you're going to use this for a task for killing Sturman at a long distance with the March. So let's say if you want to try that at night, this is what you'd be looking at. Put the NVGs on. It's a 14x zoom, so it is zoomed in, and that's like undoable, right? You're gonna look at that tree beyond that, and you lose it. Versus like no NVGs. So think about that, right? All of these red lit reticles are gonna be pretty much unusable with nods. The Schmidt & Bender is a site that I actually use on occasion, like Lighthouse, for farming rogues. So you see all that red, though, again, because it doesn't have the bulky, it's going to be a pretty crisp and clean. So that's kind of your rule of thumb, right? It's like the TAC 30, that Schmidt & Bender, or the March, the March has a very large, chunky red reticle that's going to glow. So it's going to have that, like, halo effect around that. Versus this, that has a very thin red element that shows very crisp and clean in the NVGs. But let's say that you're not a big guy for the 30mm ring. Let's say you like that 320. Because that's a very dark sight that's going to show up very well against the night vision. And if that's not your taste, what about something like that? Ooh, I use this a lot. So this is something I run a lot on, like factory or customs, the shorter maps, and you see it still has a pretty crisp and clean sight with the night vision. I dare say it's even crisper with the night vision on. But that would also mean that the HHS1 should be a very similar experience. And it is. I mean, the EOTech is a very crisp, clean, except when you zoom in. So that's when you get it, is the magnification of that scope is also pulling in the light. So you're getting that reflection off your nods, and you're getting the light reflection back into the scope. So that's going to give you some problems if that's what you're after. And finally, let's look at a couple of reflexes. So the big thing is shielded reflex versus open reflex. Right, you see how hazy that dot is? Because you can really see all the particles bouncing off that dot when you have the night vision on. So like that even might be crisper, but the sight just isn't really usable with night vision on my mind, because the MOA is just, it like doubles, you know, with where that bolt's going to hit in your dot. But if you go to something like a holographic shielded sight, it's a little crisper, a little cleaner, but it's still, man, and you see that laser, how obvious that is. And we'll get to that in 1 second here. But overall, man, my winner sight here, day in, day out, the sight that I use the most, honestly, is probably going to be this, the 2 times. And it's got a couple of cool features for nighttime. So let's say you're running night raids, right? And you do see somebody silhouetted against the back. You can go ahead and swap that to a nice, clean red sight. And the 2 times is just great. It's a super clean scope. And it's a really versatile scope too, right? So you can go ahead, swap to auto on most rifles and do your job. Obviously, the 8R, you're not going to be doing that because it's semi-auto. But you get what I'm saying. Is that less push in, you know, on the magnification. You're going to have a much better chance at hitting your shots with the recoil as well of full auto. What up, Puka? Thanks for stopping in, buddy. Yeah, 2 times, dude. It's a jam. It's a vibe. So that kind of brings me to the last little bit here that I want to kind of talk about on these. And that is actually going to be lights and lasers. So this is something you see a lot, right? On like Tears of the Sun, Black Hawk Down, right? All these super cool action movies. They've all got these like strobe effects on lasers. So we're going to go ahead and throw the basic Glock tech laser and light on this 8R. We're going to take the nods off. You see how dark it is. And you see how bright that laser is. And I actually can see where that's pointing at those trees. Way over there. This is how bright that laser is. Now, again, if you can see it, the enemy can see it. And the flashlight. Both. Alright, so let's go and do the same thing with NVGs. You see how much brighter that is with night vision. Is like that is a lightsaber glowing in your face. The flashlight, dude, there's no point. Both, you're showing your position and you're showing where you're looking. You're showing everything about what you're doing without committing at that point, because you can't see a dang thing with that flashlight in your way. So let's go ahead and pop that one off. And make a switch. The PEC is the one you're going to see in like every movie, right? The PEC is the famous one. It's got a few options. So let's go and turn this off. Flip laser on. Flip laser on. Oh, wait. Night vision. So the cool thing with the PEC is it's infrared. So what that means to you is you can't see it without nods. You're going to need NVGs. You're going to need night vision to see these. So that means that only other Chads can see you using this. And the infrared flashlight actually is super, super crisp. And even if you don't have night vision on, this is going to give you a hip fire bonus. So it's worth running these during the day when people probably aren't going to be running NVGs. And even at night, I mean, you can risk it, and maybe, you won't run into somebody from NVGs, but you might. And if they are, this is what you're going to, be running against, dude. Is you're running to somebody that's, you look like a giant beacon with where you are with these. All right, so let's go ahead and check out the cheapest budget one that almost everybody runs, and that is the LS321. The LS321, as you can see, is tan. It's a unit. Flip these out. Again, lightsaber, but also the green is slightly less visible to the naked eye. So here we have full infrared. And we have an infrared flashlight, a spotlight. And actually, the infrared spotlights work very, very well. And finally, we have kind of a combination of the infrareds. So really, you really need to kind of take a peek and look at what you're going after, how visible you want to be. Because, yeah, you might have night vision, you might have the advantage, but somebody else might also be trying to pull the same move and get one up on you. So it's just something to think about. But I'm going to go ahead and back on out of this lobby. We are going to run through some guns, maybe run through some scopes. We've got some night raids we're going to run for some tasks. And maybe do a little bit of scavenging, see if we can get some trouble. But while I get myself situated, I'm going to grab me a drink. You should do the same thing. Grab a snack. Oh, I've got Reese's in front of me. I don't know what you got. And let's have some fun. Let's cause some chaos.